You're inside a fancy villa in Dubai. It's hot outside, but the AC is blasting full power. There's a Rolls-Royce parked in the driveway. There's a watch on the nightstand worth more than most people's cars. You just posted a new photo online, another private jet, another designer outfit, another caption about grinding your way to the good life. Then, someone doesn't knock on your door. They kick it off its hinges. 6 police SWAT teams move in at once. At the exact same time, 12 other men get arrested in different parts of the city. Police later say they found about $41 million in cash and 13 luxury cars worth another $6.8 million. This wasn't a raid on drug dealers or gun runners. This was a raid on an Instagram account. Digital evidence too. Dozens of phones and computers, thousands of files. Investigators say the group had built a database with the email addresses and personal details of hundreds of thousands of potential targets scattered across the globe. This wasn't a side hustle. It was a company. It just didn't have an office or a name or anything you'd recognize as a business, except for the Instagram grid. Here's the strange part about the man they called Hush Puppy. He never hid his money. He showed it off to 2 million followers for 8 years straight in broad daylight with hashtags. How a Gucci-obsessed entrepreneur became one of the most prolific money launderers on the planet, how his network ended up moving stolen money for actual North Korean state hackers, and how the very thing he loved doing, posting online, is what got him caught. Before the villa, before the watch, Ramon Abbas was just a guy from Lagos, Nigeria, with a phone and an eye for aesthetics. Around 2012, he started posting under the name Hush Puppy. Private jets, designer clothes, the whole self-made billionaire package. It worked. He built a following that eventually topped 2 million people, and he gave himself a nickname that tells you everything about who he was performing for, the Billionaire Gucci Master. But being an influencer doesn't buy a fleet of Rolls-Royces. So where did the actual money come from? The answer is something called business email compromise, or BEC. It sounds boring on purpose. Criminals hack into, or fake, a company's email account. They pretend to be a boss, a vendor, or a bank official, and they trick someone in accounting into wiring money to the right account. Except the account belongs to the criminals. No masks, no guns, just a login page that looks close enough to real to fool a busy employee. But money from a scam like that can't just sit there looking suspicious. It has to move, split, and resurface somewhere clean, far from the hacked inbox it came from. That's called money laundering, and it's a job that requires actual infrastructure, bank accounts around the world, people willing to receive large wire transfers without asking questions, and a public image good enough that nobody looks twice. That was Hush Puppy's actual job. Not influencer, launderer for a client list that was about to get a lot scarier than the average scam artist. Imagine you're a businessman in Qatar and you want to build a school. You need financing, so when a firm with all the right paperwork and all the right vocabulary offers you a $15 million loan, you take the meeting. Prosecutors say the people behind it posed as bank officials and built a fake website to make the financing look legitimate. When you start getting suspicious, the plea agreement says they allegedly bribed a foreign official just to keep the illusion running a little longer. You never get your school. What you get is a $15 million hole where your money used to be. This is Hush Puppy's entry-level work, cleaning up illicit proceeds for other people's fraud, according to prosecutors, funding his lifestyle one wire transfer at a time. It sounds almost small compared to what's coming. It's also a preview, because if you can convince a businessman his school is real, you can convince a law firm its client is real too. He would later admit that all his scams combined cost victims almost $24 million, and this Qatari school was just one line item on that list. Now, the target list gets a promotion. A New York law firm, the kind of institution that's supposed to be professionally paranoid about exactly this kind of trick, gets talked into sending almost $923,000 to a criminal account. Across the Atlantic, an unnamed Premier League football club gets hit for $7.7 million. A British company loses millions more on top of that. Here's the darkly funny part. Laundering money stolen from a football club doesn't get the club its trophy back, and it doesn't really get anyone ahead either. Somewhere, someone is just driving a car they can't afford on a legitimate salary. Prosecutors later worked out that in just an 18-month stretch, Abbas admitted to laundering over $300 million, though they noted a lot of that planned theft never actually went through. By this point, Hush Puppy isn't a guy doing favors for scammers anymore. He's infrastructure, and infrastructure attracts a very particular kind of client, the kind that doesn't answer to any single country's police force. This is the part where an Instagram scandal turns into a national security footnote. In 2019, hackers linked to North Korea's military, the same apparatus tied to years of major cyber attacks around the world, broke into a bank in Malta and stole $14.7 million. Stolen state-sponsored money doesn't sit around waiting to get frozen. It needs to move fast through as many hands as possible. Prosecutors say Abbas helped funnel that Maltese money through banks in Romania and Bulgaria, a pit stop on its journey toward becoming untraceable. Consider the scale here for a second. U.S. officials tied this heist to a much bigger hacking conspiracy, in which North Korean operatives allegedly stole and extorted more than $1.3 billion in money and cryptocurrency from banks and companies worldwide. One Justice Department official put it bluntly, North Korea's hackers were using keyboards instead of guns, but they were essentially the world's leading bank robbers. And somewhere inside that machine, moving a slice of the proceeds, was a guy best known for tracksuits and gym selfies. This is the escalation that actually mattered. Not because the dollar amount got bigger, but because the client did. He wasn't laundering for con artists anymore. He was laundering for a regime. And he was still posting the whole time. New watch, new jet, new caption, like a man who genuinely believed the algorithm was the only audience paying attention. On June 10, 2020, Dubai police, working alongside the FBI and Interpol, arrested Abbas and 12 others in a coordinated operation called Fox Hunt 2. Investigators say the network's victim list may have reached into the hundreds of thousands. He was extradited to the United States on July 3, 2020, and by April 2021, he had pleaded guilty to one count of conspiracy to launder money. In November 2022, a federal judge sentenced him to 135 months, just over 11 years, in federal prison, plus $1.7 million in restitution, split between two of his victims. An FBI assistant director called him one of the most prolific money launderers in the world. There's also a domestic footnote worth sitting with. A senior Nigerian police officer, Abba Kyari, was suspended in 2021 after an FBI indictment linked him to Abbas, a reminder that this network's reach wasn't limited to hackers and bankers. It apparently touched the people whose job was catching him too. His victims, a bank, a law firm, a football club, a man who just wanted to build a school, mostly never got their money back. The restitution order covers only a small fraction of what prosecutors say actually passed through his hands. Meanwhile, his co-defendant, a Canadian man also involved in moving the money, faced his own consequences in the same sprawling case, a reminder that a laundering network this size was never a one-man show, no matter how much the Instagram account suggested otherwise. And his Instagram? It went completely silent after the arrest. Even so, it kept gaining new followers, around 500,000 of them, while he sat in federal detention saying absolutely nothing at all.